My child. What if the one person who stayed silent for years finally decided she could no longer carry the weight of the truth? What if your soulmate's mother stood before everyone with tears in her eyes and admitted that one decision changed two lives forever? What if the secret was never about betrayal, but about fear? Listen carefully. There are moments in life when silence becomes heavier than any spoken confession. Some people remain quiet because they are protecting themselves. Others remain quiet because they believe they are protecting someone they love. But sooner or later, every hidden truth demands to be heard. Today, our story begins with a mother who carried a burden so long that every smile she forced upon her face slowly turned into quiet regret. She watched birthdays pass. She watched holidays come and go. She watched two hearts continue living separate lives while pretending everything was fine. Yet every single night, the same memory returned to her, refusing to let her sleep. Years ago, when your soulmate first mentioned your name at the dinner table, there was a different light in their eyes. It wasn't excitement that disappears after a few weeks. It was peace. It was certainty. It was the rare kind of happiness that parents secretly pray their children will find one day. Even she noticed it. She saw the way your soulmate smiled after every conversation with you. She noticed how hope had quietly entered their life. Deep inside, she knew something beautiful was beginning. But beautiful beginnings often frighten people who have already experienced painful endings. Long before your name entered their family, she had already lived through loss, disappointment, and broken promises. Those old wounds convinced her that trusting happiness was dangerous. Instead of believing that love could heal, she convinced herself that love only created new ways to suffer. Without realizing it, she allowed her fears to become louder than her heart. Don't skip. Because this is where everything slowly started to change. At first, the interference seemed harmless. A delayed message here. A cancelled meeting there. A suggestion that maybe the timing wasn't right. She never imagined these small decisions would become the foundation of years of separation. Every excuse sounded reasonable. Every delay appeared temporary. She kept telling herself that one day she would explain everything. That day never came. Instead, misunderstandings multiplied like shadows at sunset. Your soulmate began believing that distance meant rejection. You began wondering why someone who once cared so deeply had suddenly become so quiet. Neither of you knew another hand had been gently pulling the strings behind the scenes, not out of cruelty, but out of fear disguised as protection. As time moved forward, silence became easier than confession. Whenever your soulmate asked questions, she answered with half-truths. Whenever your name appeared unexpectedly, she quickly changed the subject. Whenever someone suggested reaching out to you, she quietly discouraged the idea. No one noticed how much pain those choices caused because she smiled through every family gathering as though everything was perfectly normal. But guilt has a strange way of growing. It doesn't disappear simply because people refuse to mention it. Every wedding invitation she received reminded her of what never happened. Every anniversary celebration made her wonder what your future might have looked like if she had trusted love instead of fear. Every happy couple she saw became another silent reminder that two people who truly cared for each other had been separated by decisions that could never be undone. Your soulmate never stopped asking one question inside their heart. What really happened? No matter how many years passed, that question remained unanswered. Sometimes they stared at old photographs longer than necessary. Sometimes they quietly reopened conversations they pretended to forget. Sometimes they found themselves wondering whether fate had been unfair, or whether someone had simply hidden the truth. The mother heard those questions countless times. She answered none of them. Instead, she walked away, pretending she needed fresh air, while tears filled her eyes where no one could see them. She knew every unanswered question pushed her child further away from peace. Yet admitting the truth felt even more terrifying than continuing the lie. Don't skip. Because the moment that changed everything arrived on an ordinary afternoon. There was no celebration. No dramatic announcement. No planned family meeting. Only an old wooden box that had remained untouched for years. While cleaning a forgotten storage room, she discovered a collection of letters carefully tied together with a faded ribbon. Her hands immediately began to shake. She recognized the handwriting before opening the first page. Every letter carried memories she had spent years trying to bury. As she slowly unfolded the paper, tears fell faster than the words she was reading. Each sentence reminded her of the kindness she had ignored. Each page revealed hopes that had never reached the person they were written for. And then she realized something that completely shattered her heart. The truth she had hidden from everyone was no longer hidden inside her. It was waiting inside those letters. At that exact moment, footsteps echoed behind her. Someone had entered the room. And before she could hide the box again, a familiar voice quietly asked, "Mom, whose letters are those?" For a few long seconds, the room became completely silent. The question lingered in the air like a storm that neither of them knew how to escape. Your soulmate stood in the doorway, staring at the old wooden box resting in their mother's trembling hands. They had never seen that expression before. It wasn't fear of being caught. It was the look of someone who had spent years running from a truth that had finally caught up with them. She quickly tried to close the box, but her fingers refused to cooperate. The ribbon slipped onto the floor. Several letters scattered across the room, and one unfolded by itself as though time had chosen that exact moment to reveal what had been hidden for so long. Your soulmate instinctively bent down to pick it up. Before they could finish reading even the first few lines, their mother whispered with a shaking voice, "Please, don't." But those two words came far too late. The paper was already in their hands. The first sentence wasn't dramatic. It wasn't filled with anger or blame. Instead, it carried a quiet hope that immediately stopped them in their tracks. I don't know if this letter will ever reach you, but I still believe misunderstandings should never become the ending of a beautiful story. Your soulmate froze. They silently read the next few lines. Then another. And another. Every sentence painted a picture completely different from the story they had believed for years. There were no accusations. No bitterness. Only kindness. Patience. And unanswered questions. For the first time, they realized something that made their heart race. These letters had never been meant to stay hidden. Someone had made sure they were never delivered. Their breathing became heavier. They slowly lifted their eyes toward their mother. You told me. There was never another message. She couldn't answer. You said they never tried to explain. Still. Silence. You told me they walked away. The tears flowing down her face became the only response. Don't skip. Because silence can sometimes confess more than words ever could. Finally, she sat down on the old wooden chair as though the weight she had carried for years had suddenly become impossible to hold. I lied. Those two words echoed through the room. Not loudly. Not dramatically. But heavily enough to change everything. I told myself it was only for a little while. I thought distance would protect you. I believed time would help you forget. I convinced myself I was doing the right thing. She covered her face with both hands. But every day after that, I knew I had made the biggest mistake of my life. Your soulmate remained completely still. They weren't angry. Not yet. They were trying to rebuild an entire past that had suddenly fallen apart. Every memory now carried a different meaning. Every unanswered phone call. Every cancelled meeting. Every moment they believed they had been forgotten. What if none of it had happened the way they were told? Their mother slowly reached back into the box. There are more. She placed dozens of unopened letters onto the table. They kept writing. Another letter. They kept hoping. Another. They never stopped believing one day the truth would find its way to you. Your soulmate's hands began to shake. They had imagined hundreds of endings over the years. This had never been one of them. One by one, they opened the letters. Each page described ordinary moments. A birthday remembered. A prayer offered. A wish that someday misunderstanding would disappear. There wasn't a single sentence filled with hatred. Only love that had nowhere to go. Only words that never reached the person they were written for. As evening slowly settled outside the windows, the room felt smaller with every page they read. Their mother quietly whispered, "I wanted to tell you so many times. What stopped you?" She looked toward the window. My pride. The answer was painfully honest. I kept waiting for the perfect day. The perfect moment. But every day I waited made it harder to admit what I had done. Don't skip. because the next confession would become even harder. She stood up and walked toward an old cabinet in the corner of the room. For years it had remained locked. She removed a small silver key from a necklace she had worn almost every day. Your soulmate watched without saying a word. The cabinet slowly opened. Inside wasn't money. It wasn't jewelry. It wasn't family documents. It was a carefully protected collection of memories. Photographs. Birthday cards. Small gifts. Even a tiny wrapped package with your name still written across it. Nothing had been thrown away. Nothing had been forgotten. She had secretly kept every reminder, while pretending those memories no longer mattered. Your soulmate felt tears filling their eyes. One quiet question escaped their lips. If you knew all this, then why didn't you tell me before it was too late? Her voice almost disappeared. Because I was afraid you would never forgive me. Before another word could be spoken, a phone resting inside the cabinet suddenly lit up. It was an old device no one had used in years. Yet somehow, a new notification had just appeared on its screen. Both of them stared at it in complete disbelief. The room fell into complete silence. Neither of them moved. The old phone had been switched off for years, yet its screen now glowed with a single notification. For a brief moment, both of them wondered if their eyes were playing tricks on them. Your soulmate slowly reached toward the device, while their mother stood frozen, unable to breathe. As the phone unlocked, it wasn't a new message at all. It was a reminder that had somehow never been deleted. Years earlier, she had created it for herself with only one sentence. Tell them the truth before it's too late. The reminder repeated every single year. Every year she dismissed it. Every year she promised herself, next time. And every year, fear won. Your soulmate closed their eyes. That one forgotten reminder revealed something no explanation ever could. This hadn't been a single mistake. It had been a secret carried through countless chances to make things right. Their mother whispered through tears. I read those words every year. And every year I failed. No one spoke for several moments. Outside, the evening sky slowly turned darker, as if the world itself had become quieter. Don't skip. Because the next discovery would completely change the direction of the story. Your soulmate returned to the wooden box and carefully lifted everything out, hoping there was nothing else hidden beneath the letters. At the very bottom lay a small sealed envelope. Unlike the others, it wasn't old and faded. It looked almost untouched. Across the front, only 3 handwritten words appeared. If they ever return. Your soulmate looked at their mother with confusion. What is this? She stared at the envelope for a long time before answering. I could never bring myself to destroy it. With trembling hands, your soulmate slowly opened the seal. Inside was a single folded page. The handwriting was instantly familiar. It wasn't a goodbye. It wasn't an accusation. It simply said, if life ever gives us another chance, don't let anyone else's fear decide our future. Some stories deserve to be heard by the two people living them, not by everyone speaking around them. Those words struck deeper than anyone expected. For years, your soulmate had believed the story ended because love disappeared. Now they realized something far more painful. Love had remained. Trust had been interrupted. Their mother quietly sat beside the window. I thought I was protecting you from heartbreak. She lowered her head. Instead, I became the reason for it. Your soulmate walked toward her. There was sadness. There was disappointment. But there was also something unexpected. Understanding. Not because the choices were right, but because fear had quietly controlled an entire family for years. Still, one question remained unanswered. If everything you've told me is true. They paused. Then where are they now? The room became silent again. Their mother slowly opened another small drawer hidden inside the cabinet. From it, she removed an old address book. One page had been folded many times. She carefully unfolded it. Next to your name was an address. And a phone number she had secretly kept all these years. I never threw it away. Your soulmate looked at the page in disbelief. You knew where they were? She nodded. I always knew. A tear rolled down their cheek. So all these years, I was too ashamed to tell you. Don't skip. Because this was no longer about the past. It was about a choice that could still change the future. Your soulmate picked up the address book. Their fingers hovered over the phone number. One call. Just one call. It could answer questions that had remained silent for years. Or it could reopen wounds that had barely begun to heal. Their mother gently placed her hand over theirs. This time, her voice trembled. Whatever happens, let the truth speak for itself. Your soulmate slowly reached for their phone. They entered the number exactly as it appeared. They pressed the call button. The line began to ring. Once. Twice. 3 times. Then, at last, someone answered. But the voice on the other end wasn't the one either of them expected to hear. The voice on the other end was calm, unfamiliar, and unexpectedly gentle. Hello? Your soulmate remained silent for a second, trying to recognize who it could possibly be. I'm sorry, they finally said. I was trying to reach someone. There was a brief pause before the stranger replied. You are. But perhaps not in the way you expected. Those words immediately changed the atmosphere in the room. Your soulmate tightened their grip on the phone. Who is this? My name is Daniel, the man answered softly. I've had this number for several years now. A wave of disappointment swept across the room. For a moment, it felt as though fate had closed the door once again. But Daniel spoke before the call could end. "Wait. Before you hang up. There was something unusual when I bought this number." Your soulmate stopped. The previous owner asked the phone company to leave one message in case anyone ever called asking for them. The room fell completely silent. Daniel continued. "They said, if someone calls years from now looking for me, please tell them I never stopped hoping they were happy. Tell them I didn't disappear because I wanted to. Tell them I simply stopped knocking after every door remained closed." Your soulmate slowly closed their eyes. Their mother covered her mouth as tears streamed down her face. Those words carried no bitterness. Only quiet acceptance. Daniel spoke again. "I don't know your story. I never knew the person who owned this number. But when the company explained why they wanted that message recorded, I promised I would repeat it exactly if anyone ever called. No one said a word. Sometimes strangers unknowingly carry the final pieces of someone else's story. Don't skip. Because what happened after that call surprised everyone." After thanking Daniel, your soulmate ended the conversation. Neither they nor their mother moved for several minutes. Finally, the mother stood and walked toward the bookshelf in the living room. She reached behind a row of old family albums and pulled out a small diary wrapped in faded blue cloth. "I should have shown you this years ago." Inside were handwritten entries dating back many years. Most of them were ordinary. Shopping lists. Family birthdays. Appointments. But scattered throughout the pages were short confessions she had never spoken aloud. "Today I almost told the truth. But I lost my courage." They asked about that name again. I changed the subject. "I keep praying for another chance to fix what I broke. Fear has become my prison." Your soulmate slowly turned each page. Every confession sounded like a conversation she had been having only with herself. Then one final entry caught their attention. It had been written only a few weeks earlier. "If I cannot carry this secret any longer, I will tell everything before this year ends." Your soulmate looked up. "You were finally going to tell me?" She nodded. "Yes." "What changed?" Her answer came almost as a whisper. "I realized that protecting a lie only creates more pain than telling a difficult truth." The room grew quiet once again. For the first time in years, there were no more hidden boxes. No more locked cabinets. No more unfinished excuses. Only honesty remained. As the night deepened, your soulmate walked outside onto the front porch. A cool breeze moved gently through the trees. They looked toward the empty road and quietly wondered how different life might have been if one honest conversation had happened years earlier. Their mother joined them. "I can't change yesterday." "No," your soulmate replied. "But tomorrow still belongs to us." Those simple words brought tears to both of their eyes. For the first time, forgiveness no longer seemed impossible. Yet one unanswered question still lingered. If the person they had been trying to reach was no longer using that number, how could they ever find them now? Just then, a car slowly stopped in front of the house. An elderly woman stepped out, holding a weathered envelope in her hands. She looked directly at your soulmate's mother and quietly said, "I've been carrying this letter for a very long time. And I think today is finally the right day to deliver it." The elderly woman slowly walked toward the front door, holding the weathered envelope with extraordinary care, as though it contained something far more valuable than paper and ink. Neither your soulmate nor their mother recognized her immediately. But the moment she smiled, your soulmate's mother whispered her name in disbelief. "I never thought I'd see you again." The woman nodded gently. "I wasn't sure I would ever come back either." She looked down at the envelope. "I've carried this with me for years because I made a promise. I promised I would only deliver it when the truth had finally been spoken." Without another word, she placed the envelope into your soulmate's hands. "This belongs to you now." The seal had faded with time, but it had never been broken. Your soulmate carefully opened it. Inside was a single handwritten letter. It wasn't long. Every sentence was simple. Every word was honest. If you're reading this, then the truth finally found its way home. I never wanted anyone to choose between family and love. I understood that fear can make good people do painful things. That's why I refuse to hate anyone. If life gives us another chance someday, let that chance be built on honesty instead of silence. And if that chance never comes, don't spend another day blaming yourself. Carry the lesson, not the guilt. As the final line was read aloud, no one spoke. There were no dramatic arguments. No revenge. No anger left to protect. Only tears that had waited years to fall. Don't skip. Because sometimes the greatest ending is not finding someone again. It is finally finding the truth. Your soulmate slowly folded the letter and turned toward their mother. For several long seconds, they simply looked at one another. Then, without saying a single word, they embraced. It wasn't an embrace that erased the past. It was an embrace that acknowledged it. Their mother cried harder than she ever had before. "I don't deserve your forgiveness." Your soulmate gently shook their head. Forgiveness isn't about pretending nothing happened. It's about refusing to let yesterday steal every tomorrow. Those words lifted a burden that had been carried for years. The elderly woman smiled quietly. "My promise is complete." She walked back toward her car, leaving behind something far greater than an old letter. She left behind peace. Over the following weeks, your soulmate chose not to chase the past with desperation. Instead, they chose honesty in every conversation, kindness in every decision, and courage whenever fear tried to speak louder than love. The hidden letters were placed inside a new wooden box. Not to bury them again, but to remind the family that secrets have the power to divide hearts, while truth, however painful, has the power to heal them. From that day forward, your soulmate's mother never hid another difficult conversation. Whenever someone asked about the past, she answered with honesty. Whenever fear whispered, she chose truth instead. And slowly, the home that had once been filled with silence became a home where nothing important was left unsaid. Some stories don't end with a wedding. Some don't end with two people meeting again. Some end with something even more valuable. A family finally learning that love cannot survive where truth is imprisoned. And perhaps that was the real miracle all along. Not that the past changed, but that everyone who carried it finally found the courage to let it go.